Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. The What's Right show is on, coming to you from Paris, France. Yes, this is where I'm at here through the rest of the week. Happy to be with you. Sam Mirejovsky behind the What's Right microphone, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, reporting for duty. Now, so there's good news, folks. There's winning everywhere. And the Dems, by the way, they continue to just put foot in mouth everywhere they go. Hilarity is ensuing, and we'll get to all of this today. Just as a quick aside, checking my emails here on the road, email me anytime, sam@whatsrightshow.com. And of course, you can also reach out to me on Twitter, now known as X. If you're not on X, sign up. It's free. You just need an email. Support Elon Musk and his quest to return freedom of speech back to the United States. On X, you can find me at What's Right Sam, and of course, show-related content on at What's Right Show, including entire episodes. We put those up and clips. So if you miss a program and you want to kind of quickly see the best of what we did, what we talked about, go on X, go on at What's Right Show, click to follow. Doesn't cost you anything, and you get all the content you'll ever want, and then some. All right. Now, I say that we're winning. There was a big story that came out overnight about MIT scrapping its DEI office. So what is this all about? I told you yesterday, I'm telling you, I know what's happening. Trump has decided to make an example out of Harvard. He's doubling down on it. It's a good thing. I explained yesterday in the program why that is. The rot in this country, unfortunately, has spread and consumed great institutions of learning. And like everything that liberalism and socialism touch, it turns to crap. Any beautiful functioning country, any society with faults, but operating decently well, that gets taken over by leftist ideology, you know what happens to those places. So why would universities be any different? Well, and why does it matter? That's the other question people ask us. Sam, why are you talking about this? Why is Trump obsessed with this? We've got bigger fish to fry. And the short answer is yes, but this is one of the big fish. Because we need to reclaim our colleges and universities. Otherwise, the elites that keep getting pumped out of these schools are all going to be rabid communists, and eventually we won't have a country. So it matters. And that MIT, obviously an august and noble school, has come out scrapping its DEI program, closing its DEI office, firing all of those idiots that just sit around all day figuring out what new way to explain to everyone that Whitey is responsible for everything bad in the universe. Those people all now out of work. My tears are flowing. And MIT, why they did it now and not a month ago or not 2 months ago, because they're looking over at Harvard going, oh, that's not good. Whatever Trump is doing to them, let's just bag it. Let's bag it. And this is huge, right? This is an enormous bit of good news. Now, many other schools have come along and have bagged and closed their DEI programs, including the school that I sit on the board of, Chapman University in Orange, California. We did it as soon as the executive orders came out. It was. Let me explain something to people there, maybe that aren't familiar with this. Under the Biden administration, if you did not have DEI, you weren't getting any federal student funding. I mean, forget it. They'd come after you. So the DEI was basically de facto a must at a university, provided that you wanted any public funding. So you could go the Hillsdale College route. And Hillsdale obviously doesn't play any of these games. Is an excellent school, but they also don't take any federal dollars, and they're entirely funded through scholarships and charitable giving. So it's that's a tough road. So many schools out there are taking heed, and you're going to see some big names start to drop over the next several weeks because I believe that Trump is doubling down here and intends to make an example out of Harvard University. Now, why Harvard? Some of you have asked me that. I got a few emails, and so permit me here to just remind you quickly that there was the case that ended affirmative action. The case that originally ended affirmative action in June of 2023 was a lawsuit brought against Harvard. And the group that brought it, I think their name was, Students for Free Admissions or something like that. It was an advocacy group on behalf of, for example, Asian students and other students who had been discriminated against by Harvard admissions on the basis of race. Because Harvard admissions decided that they wanted to have more people of color. Asians don't count because they're smart and successful in the world of DEI. I'm just explaining to you how that works. So, obviously much more difficult to get into Harvard as an Asian student, as a white student applicant than it is as, let's say, a black student applicant. So anyway, it was actually a case brought against Harvard in 2020. Well, it was brought earlier, but that was heard and decided in June of 2023, and Harvard has still refused to comply with the Supreme Court. And so I suspect, in a way, I mean, obviously the Supreme Court ruling applies to every single university. It applies to community colleges. It applies to, all the way from the top to the lowest. It's not just a ruling against Harvard, but Harvard's the one that got this whole thing, lodged against them. And in the court case, they lost and have still not complied. And these are, people who will endlessly bay about how Trump is destroying the republic, how Trump is creating a constitutional crisis, how Trump is doing this, that, and the other that is unlawful and unconstitutional. Meanwhile, they have no qualms about continuing their radicalism, in spite of the fact that they were admonished by the very Supreme Court that they so fondly like to admonish. And this is part of the reason why I'm not so sure that Harvard's going to win in all these proceedings. So they filed all these suits against the Trump administration. They're going to certainly, I'm positive, get some injunctions, like is typically the case. But I think the Supreme Court might have a little bit of angst when it comes to Harvard, given that Harvard has they already found previously that Harvard violated the Equal Protection Clause, and that and that Harvard hasn't complied with them. But that's just a small aside. This DEI thing is one of the great and important causes of our time. It is the most, I think of it, one of the most important fights, aside from, let's say, getting into the Department of Justice, cleaning out the deep state and all of that. DEI is right up there with that. Fixing immigration, etc. And the reason for it is very simply put. It is an attack on the very basis of our country. DEI preaches accountability and responsibility and guilt, really, in fact, for things that aren't anybody's direct fault. It ascribes responsibility to white people for anything and everything bad that happens to or might happen to people of color. And then at the very same time, people who are actually personally and directly responsible for doing something, or perhaps not doing enough of a good thing, doing something wrong, not doing something enough that is required, like hard work, lack of success ensuing. The same DEI philosophy then preaches that it is in fact not that person's fault because they are being systematically oppressed. And the reason why certain people in the country are less successful is because of racism, because of bigotry, because the system is against them. And the answer to it is the E word, the equity word. We're going to help those people, boost them up. If they get convicted of a crime, we'll undo it. If they're being charged by the white police and the white prosecutors, we're going to let them off. Because we have to end systemic racism. We all know where this is going because it's evident. Not only are we dropping standards, not only is this an end to meritocracy if we see it all the way through, but it's also certainly will lead to a complete unraveling of society as bad people, criminals, recidivists continue to be to be let out on the streets and encouraged in their criminal activity. We've seen it right here in beautiful Las Vegas, where our schools, our teachers have been hamstrung by a state legislature who some years ago, in their infinite wisdom, a bunch of Democrats decided that they were going to push restorative justice because the system is designed, as they're thinking, to hurt students of color. And the end result was that test scores, performance, and everything dropped. Teachers could not discipline bad students. Classrooms became basically, environments of distraction and destruction. And then they had to, even the Democrats were like, oh, we got to pull this back. It's all defunct and we have to fight it. But they, on the other side, aren't going to go that easily. And you're going to see, and I mentioned this yesterday, how many of these bureaucrats and these people that have made a living off of this and who understand that this is a source of political power for them are going to continue to do DEI without the name. And so just here, I believe, let's say last night, there was a release of a hidden camera video. I got to show you this from UNC, where somebody there basically says exactly this. She basically lays it all out on tape, how they're going to completely just use different words and hide that they are continuing to do DEI. People are going to go to jail over this. It's going to be a beautiful thing to watch. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Be back right after this break.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. The What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, is on. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. So there's this gal, works for UNC, University of North Carolina, and she is basically got busted on tape discussing how they're going to change the language, okay, in these institutions of higher learning to hide that they're continuing DEI. This was captured by Accuracy in the media. This is a big scoop for them. But I think there are currently, as we speak, thousands of these types of conversations being had behind closed doors. And I think you're going to see that this is just the beginning of it. And a lot of these are going to come out and be a problem.
Like, I guess you would consider it a DEI policy. Yeah. And also established a CDO presence on this. Yeah. I'm just going to give a real spiel. Yeah. About the hide it. Please. I have a general feeling that you're fine. And that you will go back and say, hey, she taught me about those stuff.
Are those things happening?
Yes.
I love. Okay. So it's equity work is still happening on.
Don't lie.
But here she whispers, I can't say that. Because the reporter here, the spy, let's say, says, well, so I guess what I'm understanding is like, we're going to be continuing equity stuff here, yeah? She's like, yeah, I can't say that, but yes.
Yeah. So we've renamed. We've revised. We've
Okay.
calibrated, so to speak. Yeah, because language changes, right? But the people who have to be in the presence of in the space, they don't. No. So
Smart.
I think the guys that I don't repeat this something clear. It's like leadership. In order to lead diverse groups of people, you have to know about diverse groups of people. We don't have to call them diverse groups of people, but we can just say that everybody has different stocks of outreach. That's why I told my students this year. Yeah, we're gonna finesse. Good for now.
The word this year is finesse. This is what they're going to do. This is the resistance. By the way, a lot of you probably wondering, because I'm framing this as winning. And some of you might be wondering, why would you consider this winning? And I said, well, because we are sending these loons into the literal back alleys. They have to do their dirty deeds in smoke-filled rooms. Well, it's not smoke. It's, I don't know. Yeah, maybe could be. It's pot. But regardless, right? We're forcing them out of the mainstream. A year ago, they were holding open seminars about this stuff. Now they're whispering and getting caught on hidden camera saying they're going to violate the law. And this is all straight up discrimination. All of this was decided in the Harvard case in 2023. They cannot do this. This woman is violating the law. It's not Trump's executive order. It's Trump's executive order coupled with Congress, coupled with the Supreme Court. There's full alignment of all three branches of government. What the hell are they? Janique Sanders at UNC Charlotte, what the hell is she going to do to get around all of this? It boggles the mind. I know the audio is a little bit difficult to hear, but just let me continue playing the tape.
Okay. So there are certain things that I can't say. Yeah. And I haven't said them this whole time. Yeah. And I'm pretty good at learning how to be picky. Yeah. I'm also just really dedicated, I guess, to making sure that our students feel loved and supported. I could care less about whatever you want to call my office.
Come on.
All of that's going to change regardless. I was going to merge or shift or change. Maybe in 15 years, like, it's going to be something different anyway.
Language
just like always
evolves.
Always.
Language evolves. Language moves. That's her excuse here. Okay. By the way, I'm stopping the tape here, pausing it for a minute, and inserting a thought bubble. Remember how I've always said on this program that the reason why I'm such a stickler for language is it comes from my training as an attorney. Words in law mean something. And when you go to change the definition of words, you can change the interpretation of law. And you can actually turn things completely on their heads. This is why Marxists always go after language. They rename everything. They turn the whole world upside down, and they do it. Why? Because they know that they can gain control and power this way. So the Marxists are doing what the Marxists do. These people aren't even created. They're just some sort of, retarded pastiche of Karl Marx. And this is a low IQ person here. This gal. And I'll say this for a lot of these DEI people, they couldn't be successful in anything else. They just have degrees in BS, and they merchant in it. They traffic in it. So this train wreck here with Janique Sanders at UNC, released last night by Accuracy in Media, continues.
Always. We don't use the same language we used 5 years ago.
Exactly. Always evolves, yeah. He also do still want to.
Oh. No.
But with that being said, but with that being said, one of the things that I always think about is how can we address those issues and those conversations, but in a people way that's PC. Those are some of the things that
How to make this PC. That's her concern. How do we make this PC? What he means really is how do we make this pass legal muster? Absolutely outrageous. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. The What's Right show brought to you Monday through Friday by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust if you're in an accident, injured, get some legal help. Don't trust the insurance company. Just make sure someone is fully on your side. 702-820-1234. Offices in Nevada and California. 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right. Now, you can reach me, Sam at what'srightshow.com, Sam at what'srightshow.com, and on Twitter at what'srightsam. So fundamentally, something to understand that this DEI thing that we keep talking about, that Trump is pursuing, isn't just racism institutionalized within universities, colleges, schools, etc. It has pervaded every bit of public life in the United States under the last 4 years of Democrat rule. And there is this, I think, kind of shocking for some report that came out on, I think, News Nation. And they had a whistleblower come forward who said, yeah, we discriminate here at the USDA by doing loan forgiveness for anyone, any farmer that has a loan with us that isn't white. But here's what's, I guess, most shocking about this to some people is that this isn't actually breaking the law per se, although I think it's deeply unconstitutional and violates the Equal Protection Clause, but it is actually codified in a bill signed by President Joe Biden back in 2021, part of the American Rescue Plan. And this is the story, right? This rescue package, the $1.9 trillion of complete waste that gave us what ultimately? Nothing but the most wild, out of control inflation, made our country poorer in every, imaginable way. But this act actually buried in it was, a loan relief statute to give aid to socially disadvantaged farmers. It provided race-based loan forgiveness, and it was granted only to those who qualified as socially disadvantaged farmers or ranchers. If you were a black rancher, you got some money. If you weren't, if you were a white guy, you got to pay back your loan. Now, we have to talk about this. We have to keep talking. This is who the Democratic Party is. They want to reorganize wealth based on equity. That's the E in DEI, equity. Now, why does a black farmer get money, essentially free money, when you don't have to pay back a loan? That's free money. I don't know how else to cut it. That's how the IRS considers it, at least. If you're getting free money simply because of the color of your skin, what is that all about? Isn't it, after all, just Marxism, rewarmed, repackaged, dressed up in some new fangled language? Kind of reminds me of Janique Sanders over there at UNC. We're just going to change the words up. That's all this is. It's a reincarnation, albeit a poor one, of Marxism. And we know that Marxism doesn't work. It's a failed ideology. Everywhere it has been tried, everywhere it's been tested, it has failed, and it's brought misery upon everyone, except the select few that benefit at the top. This is insane. So they have this special report. I'm going to play to you a clip. There's a whistleblower coming forward, literally being told while he's working in his role, yeah, just find some minority farmers and forgive their debt.
United States Department of Agriculture whistleblower is now sounding the alarm.
It was to pay off anyone who wasn't a white male's loan. That was the only qualification for this loan forgiveness.
And what was the reaction?
So it was really silent. They were trying to keep this hushed because of the obvious implications of race-based loan forgiveness.
Race-based loan forgiveness. It's in black and white, buried in the American Rescue Plan Act. The United States Secretary of Agriculture shall provide a payment in an amount up to 120% of the outstanding indebtedness of each socially disadvantaged farmer or rancher. The act explicitly lays out who's considered socially disadvantaged.
So just to be clear, if you were American Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian Black, African American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, Hispanic, or Latino, and you were in that group, you were told you didn't have to pay your bills, essentially?
Yes, that's correct, and that your loan would be forgiven up to 120% of the loan value.
This is absolutely obscene, right? So the Democrats did this. The Democrat-run House of Representatives sent this up to the president. President Biden in 2021 signed this into law, and it's happening now. What's even crazier? And interviewing, actually, they went out and not just talked to this whistleblower, but they spoke to a farmer, James Dunlap from Oregon, who basically found out that this was going on back in 2021, 2022, and sued. And when he sued, court came in and said, "Yep, this is racist. You can't do it." There was an injunction, I believe, put in place. But the Biden administration kept on doing it. They kept right on doing the same thing, regardless of what the court said.
To me, it was combating racism with more racism. I couldn't believe that it was happening in today's age.
James Dunlap owns a small family farm in Baker City, Oregon. He works 2 other jobs to keep his farm afloat, but did not qualify for the loan forgiveness because he's white.
I knew what they were saying was that minority farmers were going to have their loans forgiven for no reason other than they decided to, they being the government. So.
And how much money they had nothing to do with it?
As far as I understand, not at all. It wasn't about hardship. It wasn't about financial situations at all. It was purely what box you checked under that ethnicity line on your application.
If you checked a non-white box, you got the free money, no matter how rich you were. James and other white farmers sued the Biden administration and were successful. The loan forgiveness for any farmer who's not white was stopped. The judge writing in his decision, it was an actual constitutional harm that cannot be undone. And James and other white farmers will suffer the harm of being excluded from eligibility for that debt relief program solely on the basis of his race. That harm, he has shown, is irreparable. But this is where things get interesting. The Biden administration was not ready to give up. They passed the Inflation Reduction Act to help farmers who couldn't pay their loans. It was supposed to help all farmers, but News Nation has learned all farmers were not told about it. News Nation obtaining a copy of this email that was sent out to share information about new payments and/or loan modifications that may assist you. But here's the catch. Our whistleblower says it was only sent to the minority farmers, aka the socially disadvantaged group. And he says USDA workers were even instructed to tell that group to stop paying their loans because they would still be forgiven. The whistleblower says none of the white farmers he works with received the email.
They got nothing. You know, it might not meet the legal definition of fraud, but it isn't right. It was discriminatory, it was unethical, and the people who pushed it are still in charge of the agency.
So here, right, the Democrats that were running the program, even though they were, slapped down by the federal courts, which they're now holding up, of course, in their fight against Trump as the penultimate authority on all things constitutional, continued to basically skirt the program and work around and do things their way anyway. This is what the left does. This is what radicals do. And it boils my blood. I mean, this is so profoundly un-American. And it has to be said, right? So anyway, I'm painting the picture here. It's not just about Harvard. It's about everything that occurred, and it's been building up over the past several decades, but it came to a full boil in the last 4 years when Biden was in power. So whoever was running the auto pen, if it was Jill Biden, Hunter Biden, or Pocahontas, they've got some splaining to do because this is fundamentally wrong. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, back right after this. Well, the story, of course, is that Democrats are not only racist, but they want to hide their racism through subterfuge. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The farm program, the forgiveness for people of color gets struck down as unconstitutional in court. Surprise, surprise. And then what occurs is, of course, the Biden administration continues doing it. That is one thing. Then you have the nice lady, Janique Sanders at UMC saying, oh, yeah, oh, no, we're still going to do DEI. I know we're not supposed to, but we're still going to do affirmative action. We're still going to do all the things that we've been told we can't. We're just going to rename it. I mentioned this one yesterday. Erwin Chemerinsky, who is a preeminent constitutional law scholar. Erwin used to be he was the founding dean of the UCI School of Law, University of California, Irvine. Came in there, I think was there about a decade, and then went up to be the dean of Berkeley, the School of Law there. If you are a law student in America, the likelihood of you using Chemerinsky's textbook in Con Law 101 is high, okay? He's got like the #1 book for it. And anyway, I'm just pointing this out. He's a huge lib, and he was caught on tape talking about hiring practices at the School of Law and how we don't take race. We're not supposed to mention, but, wink, wink, nod, nod. We still probably do. And he even admits in this class lecture that he would deny, if deposed, ever having uttered these words. Listen.
What I mean by unstated affirmative action is, what if the college or university doesn't tell anybody, doesn't make any public statements, but still wants to? I'll give you an example from our law school, but if ever I'm deposed, I'm going to deny I said this to you. When we do faculty hiring, we're quite conscious that diversity is important to us. And we say diversity is important. It's fine to say that. But I'm very careful when we have a faculty appointments committee meeting. Anytime somebody says, we should really prefer this candidate over this candidate because this person would add diversity, don't say that. You can think it, you can vote it, but our discussions are not privileged. So don't ever articulate that that's what you're doing.
Yeah, this is, so sitting around, that's great. And this clip is old, but I just keep coming back to it because it's as relevant as ever. This came out in July of 2023, literally days after the decision in the Harvard case where the Supreme Court struck down the constitutionality of affirmative action. So this is Berkeley law dean Erwin Chemerinsky scheming right in the immediate aftermath of a big Supreme Court decision of how to skirt around the law. This is a guy teaching future law students. Now, he gets away with it. But I think in the era of Trump, fewer of these big dogs will. And this is why it was important to bark at, continuing the dog analogy, bark at and attack a little bit, chomp on Harvard University and put them in a corner. I think it's been, very, very, very important. I think, look, I know. Well, look. I think one of the other important things right now is that the Democrats have used this ideology to absolutely take over these institutions, just simply, administratively, right? If you put in a DEI department into a school, into the Department of Agriculture, into the FBI, how important is that department? Well, every hiring decision has to go through it. Every disciplinary action has to go through it. Every termination has to go through it. I don't care what you call that department. Think about how powerful that group of people are. They control essentially every key function of whatever, institution we're talking about. And now these people, what are their qualifications? Well, they're all stupid, okay, first of all, but they're controlled by political actors because it's a deeply political department. They're there. They've got a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year job, basically saying thumbs up, thumbs down to important decisions based on some racial criteria, and creating equity and diversity. And so whoever's giving them that position, they're living high on the hog. They've got all this money coming, and whoever's giving them that position now controls them. And people giving them these positions are the Democrats, simply put. So it has put the Democratic Party and its, critical actors in the catbird seat everywhere across the country. Even in businesses, right? Every business that had a robust DEI team, that, every big promotion at Disney is controlled through the DEI department. And consequently, now we have Disney not producing anything that anybody ever wants to watch. So, this is, if you're a student of history and you understand what the communists did, that's what they did. They installed a political apparatchik in every company, in every department, everywhere. And this Communist Party member, sole role was saying, hey, that person is acceptable, to the regime, and that person isn't. If you want to do business in China, you have to basically go into partnership with the Chinese government, and they call the shots of who you hire. You want to put a top executive in there who's really, really good, but doesn't have the right political connections, is maybe slightly undesirable to the regime, to Beijing, he's out. Communist Party, you're never going to hire him. They blacklist people. This is how it operated, how it worked. These Biden people, these Democrats, were slowly but surely turning America into a communist country. And it's not the ranting hyperbole that you hear from a lot of conservatives. Oh my God, you're all communist. Literally, these DEI departments functioned exactly as these, the communist apparatchiks that worked and were set up in, state-run businesses, at universities, in political departments, everywhere. Everything became political. You wanted to register something, you wanted to get your ID. If that person in that department said, not, well, here it's not Whitey. The Whitey doesn't get a loan. Whitey doesn't get a benefit. It's that vulgar. It pains me actually that this all happened and is still happening in resistance to the Supreme Court, the Constitution, and Trump's executive orders. But literally, this is how communism functions. This is exactly how Mao operated, how Stalin operated, how every from Honecker to everybody, Ceausescu and Joe Biden, to throw him in that group. It's absolutely tragic. So I'm painting a picture. I just want to tell you. And by the way, I'm going to get to this here in a moment. Just how the deterioration that ensues from this is astounding. And I don't know if you saw this news from the San Francisco school district. I got to get to this here. We are letting our young people down through the dumbing down of standards. There just continues, literally day after day, more and more news about this coming out. It's absolutely embarrassing. And then right here at home in Nevada, there's the debate on school choice, AB 584. I want to get into that as well when we come back from the break, because this all ties in. We've got to remove the Democrats from our schools, period, full stop. Because we've seen what they do when they're allowed to run amok, and it isn't pretty. So we gotta save our country. We've got to save our students, our future generations. They have to be liberated from this, from this programming. All right, Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, back right after this. You're listening to the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. The Guardian newspaper is reporting a sudden rise in beard transplants. Men are getting, they have thinning beard, I guess not big, lush, full beards like producer Robbie, so they're getting transplants. I wonder if Pete Buttigieg has gotten a beard transplant. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Welcome to the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your personal injury case. 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. My email, sam@whatsrightshow.com, sam@whatsrightshow.com. Find me there. Folks, I got to tell you, Buttigieg, he's making all the rounds. He's got that beard now. And I think, I guess Democrats have a problem with men. Everybody's talking about this. They've got this problem with men, reaching out to men. Now, it ties into the lowering of standards, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I mean, see, this is, it's folks, it's all connected. The problem with men is this: you can't blame white males for everything and then be surprised that they are abandoning you politically. But you think that white men are just going to suddenly go, you know what, you're right. We are responsible for institutionalized racism. Everything bad that happened to any person of color is my fault. Democrats are right. I mean, there's only so much self-flagellation one can endure, or engage in. So this is like, this is the problem. So they got, the whole funny thing about this is the very people that are the very revolutionaries that have sought to reorganize society and think that, we have to use levers of equity to right things in the U.S. are now the ones that are projecting their vision for what, white males ought to be. They did it with Tim Walz. Remember, in the 2024 election, Tim Walz was out there with a shotgun, working on his car, doing other stupid things. I'm going to look. I'm going to be a man. I'm going to be a man. And he was. It was just hilarious. It was completely off-putting. And yeah. I mean, this is where it gets really fun, because apparently there's this Democratic activist. Her name's Olivia Juliana, and she went on some podcast. She's on with Micah Erfan. And she's like, I'm gonna tell you what resonates with young men. We're Democrats. We're gonna resonate with young men. We're gonna get them back. And it's, I mean, this is, by the way, this woman's got to be what, 600 pounds? She's enormous. And it's okay. Well, let's play the video here. This is making the rounds and raising some eyebrows. Let's say, because I don't think that she's got this exactly right.
The reason why Republican messaging resonates with men is because men want bad things, right? It's like men want to have sex and like own women, right? Like they want to dominate everybody. And Republicans say, you get to do that. And then Democrats can't say that. So we just lost men. It's over, right? Like, what are you talking about? Like a lot of times it will be men that are liberals who will like agree with that shit. I'm like, dude, what is going on? Like there's a lot of men that don't think that way, obviously. And it's just such a negative view to take on like half of the human race.
Well, I also think it's just so abundantly clear that the people who say these things don't actually spend time talking to young men. You know this because we know each other in real life, but I spend a lot of time on college campuses, and I spend a lot of time with
young men.
I love young men. I love frat guys, and in that I've realized like even the ones that identify as conservative are almost always pro-choice. They're almost always pro-gay marriage. You'd be surprised at the number of them who support Black Lives Matter. And so I feel like people just kind of lump them into this box when the truth is, again, a lot of them are with us on the issues. They're just not part of our coalition because they feel like they're not welcomed in it.
Okay, let's back up here a little bit. First off, she loves frat boys. This maybe to eat them. This is so absolutely out of touch. You think that there are young conservative men on college campuses today that support BLM? You think that that's even possible? It's laughable, right? I mean, the whole thing, it's a farce. You cannot tell young men that their needs, that their lives are irrelevant, which I think has been messaging from the Democratic Party, all right? You can't tell them that they're responsible for systematic racism. You can't hold struggle sessions in classrooms and college, classrooms and lecture halls about how, white men are responsible for everything bad that's happened. You can't have classes where, and we're talking about college students, where you're being told to apologize for your whiteness. These are kids that just want to go to school. They want to graduate. The plan of happiness, the path to happiness, is being productive, making, earning a good living, being self-sufficient, starting a family, having kids. And the Democrats are anti all of that. They want you, they want you dependent. If you're a young person, they are training you for dependence. They also don't want you really to start a family, because the more I analyze this, the more I recognize that I think Democrats are very anti-family. Every Democrat-run program it's almost crazy how it's geared toward disrupting a nuclear family. And so there's a lot of misery that follows. And then what you have is you've got these influencers that wield some enormous, I guess these people have a huge following, and are saying, no. Their view of reality, which we understand to be warped, they're projecting that onto the rest of the country, and they're not seeing anything that's coming their way. Now, I view this as great news. I view this as a signal that the Democratic Party certainly isn't finding its way. And it's not just the wreckage of the 2024 election. This is the entire, socialist democratic movement that has taken over the Democratic Party, that ran the administration because, Biden was drooling in the corner somewhere. And the people that were actually running the show believed this stuff. It wasn't just some young people, some bloggers and vloggers and influencers. Those people became very powerful in the last administration, and they were able to run things their way. We had institutionalized racism. We had a war on men. We had a war on young men in particular. And it was rejected. And now they continue to double down on that failure. Now, I'm bringing this back to, of course, education, because that is a place where Democrats continue to double down on failure, right? They say we need more money for schools. So we put more money for schools and we hire more teachers. We hire more administrators. We keep doing the same thing. We pay more money for it. And the blob that is the institution of education, school districts, the Department of Education, state organizations, organs that run, public ed, just continue to bloat and deliver worse and worse results. Nowhere do we see this better than back home here in Nevada, right? We have, what are we, fifth? We're almost dead last in the country in terms of education. And we have our Republican governor who says, "Oh, we're going to give the teachers some money." We got to hold these teachers. It's not even we got to hold the system accountable. But the problem is the system is like every other Democrat-run system. It has been corrupted to its core. And there's no getting around it. Where was it? I pull out the story in San Francisco. This is absolutely wild. There's a new San Francisco public school plan that would eliminate homework and weekly tests. It would allow students to take the final exam multiple times, converts all B grades into A's and F's into C's. This is wild. Currently, a student needs 90% for an A and at least 61% for a D under the San Leandro Unified School District's grading system touted by the San Francisco Unified School District and its consultant. A student with a score as low as 80 can attain an A, and a score as low as 21 can pass with a D. 21 out of 100. 21%. You got almost 80% of everything wrong, and you can still get a passing grade. And young men, this ties into it. Young men who are, we have it in our DNA. This is evolutionary biology. We're out there. We're the breadwinners. We're the hunters. We get happiness. It's built into us. Happiness from providing, from achieving, from getting, from creating. And at every turn, we're being told that mediocrity is fine. By the way, you're also guilty for everything bad that's happened in the world, so go F off. This is how you destroy a society from within. DEI, okay? What is this? If you're talking about original sin, right? Or white guilt, but mixed with equity, right? Which is what? The elimination of meritocracy. Look at this new grading system that's proposed in San Francisco, right? Eliminating merit, dumbing down schools, making politics the deciding factor in hiring, firing, promotion, etc. And white men all men on some level, right? We all have this built in us. Men are pissed off at this, and women too, because women want strong men. That's also ingrained in evolution. Everything that the Democrats are doing is anti-science, and they tout the fact that we are the party of science. Yeah, right. The party of voodoo. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Be right back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right Show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Now, there's a huge part of me, of course, that delights in how lost the Democratic Party is, but it is important that the ideology behind the failure of the Democratic Party is thoroughly discredited. That's why I'm getting at all this stuff. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. I mean, just for a minute, think about this, right? San Francisco Unified School District. Let's repeat that again. San Francisco, this is the tech capital of the world. There are high-achieving people there. What does dumbing down the criteria do? What does equity do to keep San Francisco's competitive edge? I mean, the answer, simply put, is it's a city and society in complete disrepair and decay. Now, I'll tell you, I think that one of the key reasons that men are leaving the Democratic Party is that men want to achieve. Men want to be independent. Men want to be strong. What was the coding during the 2024 election for the Democrat version of a man? See, the guy here, I played the clip in the last segment about the Democrat influencer. The guy was talking, oh, har, har, har. It's, the conservatives tell men you can just own women, or you can just, you just have sex, and even some Democrat men are like, yeah, we like that. Now, that's obviously not true, but first, in order to answer that, what is Democrat coding for what men should be like? Because if you just step back and observe or replay in your mind the 2024 campaign, you remember, you had Doug Emhoff. Doug Emhoff, of course, was a serial sex pest. Okay, nanny, the whole nine yards, right? Divorces, kind of a tragic, story of a personal life. But on stage, the way he presented in front of people was very beta. He was the supportive husband. He was he was just in the shadow. Very, used very soft language, is very demure. I love that word, demure. Walz is a closeted gay guy. I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with that, but he's the guy definitely is not even straight. I mean, the whole thing was just, that was no man that I know, save for my gay friends, was looking at Tim Walz and at Doug Emhoff going, yeah, those are great role models there. Somehow we got from America, where we were like Ronald Reagan, riding a horse and wearing a cowboy hat, to suddenly going, oh yeah, we could, have Kamala Harris, who's a cackling hyena, supported by a cast of eunuch men. The whole thing was bizarro. So it's, to me, this is where the Democratic Party lost support. And so let's then go back to what this influencer, this liberal influencer, he looks to be about, 25, maybe 30 max, and talk to him about, he's saying that, Democrats are, even Democrats are getting persuaded by Republican messaging that you can, as a man, go out there and own a woman. No, it's, the idea of traditional marriage is becoming more popular. And when you look at the research, people in traditional marriages, and what I mean, wife at home with kids, husband working, those people are far happier than, the average person in society. Now, it doesn't work for everybody, okay? I don't have my show is not about promoting a certain kind of lifestyle. I think, I think there's all sorts of ways to make it work. But it's, to me, becoming obvious that delaying, your development and having an eternal childhood, and for men particularly, and even for women, and all of a sudden you're up against the clock, and you've got, you want, maybe you want, suddenly go, oh my gosh, I want to have kids. It's in your biology. And you're denying that biology because you're being sold a bill of goods. You're going to be independent, and everybody's created equal and everything. And it has nothing to do with equality. It has to do with our evolutionary biology, which the left wants to deny. And at the same time, messaging to us that we're responsible for everything bad in the world if we happen to, I don't know, be male, or be white, or be wealthy, or not come from a disadvantaged background. It's just all of it is complete nuts stuff. By the way, who was actually running the White House? This is interesting. So David Hogg, he's now on the outs, the Democratic Party. He's gotten himself into a little bit of hot water following his ouster. But he recently dropped the hammer on who was actually running the White House. I got to mention this when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right Show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. There is a great piece in the New York Times, I think. Need to mention this. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Welcome to the What's Right Show. 6 months later, Democrats are still searching for a path forward. According to Anat Shenker-Osorio, that's a mouthful. After about 250 focus groups of swing voters, a few patterns have emerged. Republicans are seen as apex predators. Lions, tigers, and sharks. They're beasts that take what they want when they want it. Democrats are typically tagged as tortoises, slugs, or sloths. Slow, plodding, passive. Apparently, this researcher perked up earlier this year when a Democratic man in Georgia suggested that a very different kind of animal symbolized her party. He said, a deer. A deer in headlights. You stand there, you see a car coming, but you're going to stand there and get hit with it anyway. Now, you know what's funny to me? The people that have run the DEI train at the heart of America are anything but tortoises or deers or beta animals. These people are the predators. And they're very cunning and very smart, but they're willing handmaidens in the system, the people that maybe run a DEI team or their voters. They're all gullible fools, right? Most Democrats, the folks that just go along with the nonsense are kind of dummies. And it's sad. They're very gullible. They're very influenceable, and that's what they're describing here. But I'll tell you, you think nobody should take Nancy Pelosi. Well, a little past her prime now, but take her for a fool, or take her for anything other than a complete apex predator. The Democrats that have survived in government have foisted Democratic ideology on us are enormously powerful and strong. By the way, who was actually running the White House? Mentioned this just before the break. David Hogg, who is in a bit of hot water right now. You see the latest. He's being accused of, as soon as he got in as vice chair of the Democratic Party, he gets in and he starts to, hear me out on this crazy stuff. He gets in there and he downloads a bunch of proprietary Democratic Party data and uses it for his PAC, his Political Action Committee. Well, I'm pointing this out because, of course, that is a big problem. And if it's true, could see him in some real hot water, potentially getting sued by the Democratic Party. So watch that story. Anyway, he is David Hogg basically gets caught in an undercover conversation with Project Veritas. This is so good. I'm playing it right now.
Off the record, of course. Foundational question for me is like, how corrupt is the DNC if so many people knew, or few people knew about Biden? Well, the president of the United States.
I mean, I think the fact of the matter is the DNC is always going to be like a campaign arm of the president, ultimately. The bigger issue was like the inner circle that was around Biden. That's it.
And I can't stress to you enough.
Like Joe Biden's chief of staff, like had an enormous amount of power.
Joe Biden?
Joe Biden's chief of staff.
That was like an open secret at the level. Like, I would avoid him. Like, he was scary. What was his name? Anthony Trump. I've never seen him. Exactly. What do you mean? He's like a shadowy, like, Wizard of Oz type figure. That's what made him so, like, I knew how he looked, but I'm like, the general public wouldn't know how this man looked. But he wielded an enormous amount of power, and I can't stress to you how much power he had in the White House.
These are people, when you look at the org chart at the Biden White House, it's all going to come out. These are people who nobody, 99.999% of the American public has never heard their names. These are only people known to a few of us that are, have any interest in deep interest in American politics and current events. And even I, a reasonably well-informed and up-to-speed person on all things political, don't know some of these names. But Jill Biden's, the first lady's chief of staff, may have been the one running the show. I'm dismissive, by the way. There's a lot of reports out there who is running the auto pen. We got to wait and see. And the Democrats, some of these Democrats, by the way, have been called in now by the House Oversight Committee and asked to testify. And by the way, what are the House Republicans doing? Issue a gosh dang subpoena. Don't invite these people. What is this? This is war. We're inviting you in there. I tell you, just absolutely. The House Republicans are on my last nerve. But that's a separate issue. We're going to find out who these actors were. And you're going to find reptiles, sharks, okay, killers. These are not as the New York Times story, retrospective here on the 6 months since the election, retrospective on where we are. This is not where we're going to find that these people are like, deer in the headlights. So I think that's an important part of this to talk about it. A lot of the Republicans are independent-minded people. This is why we're very bad at falling in line. Even with Trump, we love Trump. We support Trump. Trump wants to blow a $20 trillion hole in deficit, and we're arguing about whether the CBO got it right. I'm sorry. I'm going to say I'm worried about that because we don't have blind fealty and allegiance. This is why the House Republicans are in disarray, because they're rebelling against leadership. Republicans are stronger, rank and file. You and I, we're built differently. The Democrats will just follow whatever gook is put in front of them, right? Just put the slop, the political blech, throw it down. And they're like, oh, I'm going to eat it. It's just like, yeah, it's wild. Now, the piece did have something interesting, the New York Times piece. Again, this is the story. 6 months later, Democrats are still searching for a path forward by someone named Anat Shenker-Osorio. She's writing this piece. And it talks about the gender gap, that it's a long benefited Republicans, now helped Republicans in 2024. Men swung harder to the right, but also women, right? Women are shifting. They did. By the way, there was a prospectus to raise $20 million, aims to reverse the erosion of Democratic support among young men. It's codenamed SAM. I don't know. I'm a little bit flattered. This is apparently not my name, but it's short for Speaking with American Men. A strategic plan promises investment to study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention. They need to spend $20 million to figure out how to talk to men. This is why Kamala Harris's campaign overspent, was $300 million, $400 million in the hole, and then still lost the election. Absolutely wild stuff. According to Ms. Schenker Osorio, the Democratic researcher messaging consultant who holds regular focus groups, said the Democratic voters today craved more action and less self-reflection. Voters are hungry for people to actually stand up for them or get caught trying, urging Democratic leaders to embrace the fight. The party is doing a lot of navel-gazing and not enough full-belly acting. The problem is that their resistance is, like I mentioned earlier, there is resistance efforts out there. They're doing it in the shadows because it's illegal. Congress, the president, even the Supreme Court has all decided that you can't do DEI. You can't do affirmative action. So I guess the resistance here would involve people going to jail. And that might be a good look for Democrats moving forward. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. I'll be back, folks, in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right show will continue after these messages. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome back. I have this is a great tweet the other day that sums up my thinking precisely on the matter of meritocracy. And that's by Chamath Palihapitiya, who, of course, runs the All In podcast, is a investor, a very successful guy. And he writes, it's increasingly obvious that there are two groups of people in the world. Accountables, people who believe their reward should be coupled to their effort and outcome. So whatever you get from your hard work, from your skills, from, blood, sweat, and tears. Then the second group, of course, are, as he puts it, the unaccountables. Louses, he calls them, who think that their mediocrity should always be rewarded under all circumstances. He writes, if the unaccountables win, we become a lost society. This is precisely it, and it sums all of what I have been saying now in a perfectly little, bundled package. Because when you look at DEI, when you look at dropping standards in schools, when you look at things like restorative justice, which when practiced in an educational setting, essentially lowers the standards for what is acceptable behavior, what is acceptable academic performance, all in the guise of equitable remedial relief for perceived, racial injustices or societal injustices, systemic failures and the like. And what it does, essentially, is it makes more unaccountables in our society. And the more unaccountables we have, see, this is what the Democrats are banking on. They're absolutely, butthurt that they lost the last election. They're crying over it. They're spending $20 million on a study to figure out how to talk to men. But ultimately, they just want to get in power for a little bit longer, just one more election cycle or two, and they'll get to a critical mass of takers, to a critical mass of people who would rather be spoon-fed manure than to have to work an honest day's life in their, ever, right? These are people who, the Democrats, look, if they just keep repeating to enough successive generations that you can't make it on your own, you can't succeed, you can't, get anywhere without the help of Big Brother to help, remediate wrongs. You're a victim. And they use, the Democrats' power of the schools. And the only thing that poses a risk to Democrats' school power right now, is Trump, number one. And number two, any kind of quantitative assessment of how well students are doing. There are only so many hours in the day, right? You're in the classroom, you're a kid, you remember this, going to school, you're there for only so many hours of the day. So again, how do you make more unaccountables? How do you make more of the victims? Well, you have to indoctrinate them. And if you're spending time indoctrinating kids, what are you not doing? You're not teaching them, right? And the way you justify that is by saying that math is racist, that history is racist, that objective standards like testing is racist. That's what the story really is coming out of San Francisco. Making 21% a passing grade, making, B's into A's, making it so you can take tests as many times as you want, even not even going to school being a requirement. That's buried in there in the fine print. But you still have to, they'll still propagandize you, right? But what do these propagandists not want? They don't want to be held accountable for the lack of learning that occurs in classrooms because they want any and all available time with the student to be focused on indoctrinating the next generation of Democrat voters. So to me, right, that's why the fight with Harvard matters. That's why DEI has to be crushed. That's why we have to return back to merit-based systems. That's why it's important for DOJ to ask federal employees, what did you do this week? What did you accomplish? Because your production matters. Your value isn't from the color of your skin or, how bad off your parents were or weren't. It just matters about you. And the Republican Party, if it wants to become a dominant force in this country, has to go straight to the heart of the question. And that's what MAGA is doing. That's why the old Republican Party is dead, because they could never articulate this. Or they failed to for a number of years. They didn't get at the fact that we are the party that wants to see you succeed. We're the party that wants you to be independent. We're the party that wants you to be strong. We're the party that wants you to be happy. We want you to achieve that. And we're going to get the hell out of your way. And we're going to create as fair of a society as we can. It's filled with opportunity. We want you to keep as much of your hard-earned money as possible. We want you to be able to decide what schools to send your kids to. We want you to be able to take your church, kids to church wherever you want to. We want you to be able to decide what vaccines you take or don't take. We want you to have autonomy. And everything the Democrats are about is pushing governmental control so that they have power over us. That's the monopoly that the Democratic Party wants. And it's all about political power, plain and simple. And this is why Governor Lombardo, and I like Joe, he's got to, find his balls and fight these crazy Democrats in the assembly. And I know he doesn't have a lot of power, big, majority there. But education's the key thing. There's an enormous amount of power that the Democrats have thanks to public education. And, Trump's taking the right. Trump's dagger into the heart of the Democrat beast. Going after the Department of Ed is huge. Trust me on this, folks. Going after Harvard is huge. Forcing these corrupted institutions to reform their ways, bringing power back down to local levels. School choice is huge, and I love that Lombardo is making this fight. By the way, there was some great testimony, and let's see if I've got a moment here to play it, because this was just absolutely wonderful. Homeschooled kid gave this testimony. Juliet Long asked for school choice at the Nevada legislature. This was just wonderful.
My name is Juliette Leong, spelled Julietteleong, and I'm here today to express my strong support for Bill AB 584 to expand school choice. Thanks to Governor Lombardo, Nevada is on its way to becoming a true school choice state, giving the children the tools to thrive. Our school system is too large and too slow to keep up with a world shaped by rapidly changing job markets. That's why families need options, like smaller private schools, charter schools, and homeschooling. I spell at a 3rd grade level and do high school level math, and no school could accommodate my needs. So I'm homeschooled. And because of that, I've performed at Carnegie Hall, won 6 national math competitions, and donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to nonprofit organizations through the sales of my paintings. But what about the child with the same potential, except whose family can't afford to homeschool? It's not just about academics. It's about unlocking talents, building confidence, and creating opportunities.
She's absolutely right. It is about that. And I'm glad that Lombardo's taking this stand. And I tell you, any little bit of erosion of strength for the monopoly of public education in the state of Nevada and in the U.S. is a good thing. Gotta run, folks. I'll see you tomorrow. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT.